Really?
No,
Yeah, okay.
not. So you said, I want to talk about NLP and data.
Yes.
And then bottom line, in a way, you said it a little bit like before we started. Like the older I get, the more I care less about the fancy stuff, and I care about data.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that?
Because data is what is actually making this tick. So it also the things that could fail projects if you have bad data and high expectations.
So if we were to give a name for this topic, it would be something about data readiness or
data readiness levels.
Yes.
So let's start there. So when we approach people to work with, new peers, new clients, we usually start off by talking about this concept of data readiness levels, which Professor Neil Lawrence coined, I think, in 2017. There's a white paper. So he essentially says that, and this is really loosely modeled on NASA's technology readiness levels, the 0 to 9 thing. So technology.
So is this a product? No, this is something else.
This is not a product. This is like a framework for talking to stakeholders about their data maturity, if you will. So there are 3 different bands. Band A, B, and C. A is top, and if each band can have different kinds of levels in it. But let's start at the band level. Band C is where you start off. This is the accessibility thing. So is there data? I mean, you started Band C.
Can we Google this?
Band C level 4. Yeah, we have actually written a white paper on data readiness for natural language processing. So you can Google it. There's at Band C, you start out with hearsay data. Some manager had heard something about there's data. We have lots of data. We can do this. AI can do it. It's cool, guys. So we need programmatic access to data. We need it to be available at the fingertips of the people working with it. We need it to be lawful. Exactly. This is Neil Lawrence's webpage.
So Neil Lawrence webpage, datareadiness.org.
Yes. So, but it's a good way of talking to this to people about it. But again, it's expectation management. So before you can do anything, you have to have data. It's Band C. It's the law thing that you have to have work with GDPR and stuff like that. You have to have your licenses sorted. You have to have the data accessible. You have to have it converted or convertible. So you do that all in Band C. That's where we start. So the transition is from hearsay data, rumored data, to actually completing Band C.
And even including PDFs, I see that.
Exactly. Good. So we are now speaking from an NLP perspective, but this is of course for any kind of data.
Yep. So this allows us to have a lingo around, do we have data for this problem?
Exactly.
And yes, we have data. Yeah, but what band is it in really?
Yes.
Oh, it's only in Band A.
So
okay, we need to do certain things to get to Band C. So then we can also manage the.
Oh, so Band C is the top. The
bottom. So it's only in Band A. So now we can manage things.
No. Band A is best. The best.
Sorry.
So we're moving towards Band A. So we start out at Band C.
Okay.
So once we cleared all this accessibility things, we go to Band B, which is about validity. So could you trust this data? Is it true in a sense? Have you removed? What about null values? Have you removed duplicates? Or is the data contradictory and such?
Do you think these things about doing this kind of pre-processing and data cleaning will be equally important in the future?
Yes. Because it's so simple to do it. So
is it really?
Yeah, I mean, if you got past Band C, which you have to, I would say that you could do it quite cheaply, and you will gain something from it. But if you don't do it, it might be a stop.
Wouldn't it be more generic if you simply make the model handle?
Yeah, maybe. But still cleaning. But if you do it, maybe. But I would love for it to be like that, of course. I would like to just pour everything into one USB stick.
Intuitively, this makes so much sense for me also from a management of expectations point of view. When you start off these projects, business always says, how hard can it be? You have the data. And you're always lacking a lingo to explain how much shit, how dirty it is, right?
Yes.
So if you can work on that lingo, and you can even teach your business leaders, this is Band C stuff. So we need to do this.
So
first.
what we did, and I can come to that later on, what we did was actually to devise a couple of questions, or 6 questions that we could ask people and have them reason about, and then they would sort of, okay, I know.
Categorize their data. Yes.
So band B is not something we have worked with because we either never get there or the data is in such a good state that we could start off at band A. And band A is about the utility, and this is highly dependent on the use case. So if data is band A for one task, it might not necessarily be band A for a different task. So, and this is where the annotation, or let's even the case that where you have experts working with this. Experts are usually really good at knowing if something is relevant once they see the data. But
domain experts.
Yeah, domain experts, humans, oracles, human oracles, not database oracles. When they see something, they can say, well, this is relevant because, and this is not relevant. But by not showing examples, they can't really tell. So you have to sort of elicit their information need in some way. This is at band A. Band A is also about annotating the data. So if you have to have training data or at least evaluation data, because as Anders said, you need much fewer examples, fewer data points now to train something like a text classifier.
Yeah, we're going into the self-supervised or unsupervised.
But still, you need some data annotated to know how good it is.
Yeah.
So you can convince.
Active learning techniques.
Yes.
No,
that's different.
Active learning is different. There we can come to that. That's two modes to this as well. So this is usually what we talk about, and we came up with 6 different questions that you could talk about with your clients.
Because this is the beautiful thing, right? Can we break this down into a framework? Can we publish this open source? Can people start becoming more to become data literate? We need to find a way to discuss it and explain it and use it pragmatically.
So what I did was we wrote a white paper and I published that on GitHub so people could submit.
You know the name of it if you were to Google it?
I really like this.
It's data readiness for natural language processing. Data readiness for NLP. Yep. It should be there.
And this is on GitHub.
Yes. Yes, the first one.
Fredrik O.
Yes.
Fredrik O. That's you, man.
That's me. So there it is. So this is what we're working with, and it's a appropriately vaguely defined framework. So you can actually.
I love the term appropriately vague.
I mean,
I love it too.
If it's too rigid and people will say, well, this doesn't apply to me, then they will sort of discard.
Can you say the positive way? It's appropriately generic.
Generic. I prefer Fredrik's. I prefer his way. It's much more honest.
So I mean, this is what we do when we start a new project. We usually do some sort of data readiness assessment.
So you have now, because what we're doing now is finding out what's the optimum way from ideation to production of a POC.
So this is the data side, but you also need to know what's your pain point. What's the problem you're trying to solve? What will you achieve? Let's not talk about the technology so far, but talk about the problem space. What's your business pain points?
Exactly.
And then we can talk about the data and we align them and see what kind of technologies are appropriate here.
So now we can go nerdy on the stuff I work with, because what I really truly believe in is this cross-disciplinary way of working. And what I have found out is that we tend to, in the large organization, not think through what happens truly in the ideation phase, what happens truly in the feasibility phase. So we end up where, the data governance part or the data access part was forgotten, or the technology was forgotten. So if you evolve around the business value, the customer value, and you go around technology choices or algorithm into deployment and how to build, and then you go into data. So we've been working on this sort of idea on the framework of trying to, we work agile, agile scrum. That's not the point. The point is, can we at least agree upon what the different roles has in their backlog if we are in the ideation phase? And next on that, what are the common lingos and templates and methodologies? And what you can see is that if you can stabilize that, you can move faster on each use case. So this is what I'm working on.
Yeah.
I think it's completely fitting into.
Yes.
This is so now we're going into the data perspective, and what is our thinking in ideation phase around data? You should look at your band ABC. It's like a methodology that fits in the ideation phase. Fantastic. Do you see what I mean? I'm like,
yes.
And this for me is a huge problem. And this orchestration problem that we all understand what we should do. I think it's equally, or this is my main headache in the large corporation.
And I think it's all about managing expectations and making sure that we are talking about the same things and agreeing on the definition of done. And that's the third time I've mentioned definition of done.
Yeah,
but
and now definition of done. How do we talk about that when we have one guy is a service designer, one guy is a data scientist, one guy is a business domain expert who doesn't know shit about data. So we kind of need to find a common lingo, right? Or how do you see that? How do you do definition of done when you have different competencies in the same team?
I once was at a conference. It was more than 20 years ago. It was a human-computer interaction conference, CHI, in Seattle. On stage was this Sony guy. They had made some fancy small robot. And someone in the audience asked, well, how did you evaluate this? And the guy on stage said, well, we're shipping 200,000 units on Monday. That's the evaluation, how it sells. I mean, that's one way of measuring if things are actually successful. So, yeah. I mean, you have to, in some sense, make the bed for success, in a sense. So you have to have like you can't measure everything. You have to at some points in time in process like this. That's a leap of faith, I would say. But you have to have a stable ground for it.